Welcome back everyone to Racing Reviews and welcome to my mid-season Formula 1 2023 driver reviews. We've made it to the summer break and it's been 2 weeks already, 2 weeks until Formula 1 is back in Zandvoort, and it's been a season of dominance so far for Max Verstappen, and I kind of feel like dominance is an understatement, is how much Max has been bossing it this season. But today, we've got the tier list out, and I've got 21 drivers to slot into these 5 categories. Has it been a legendary season, a great season, good, average, or has it been a pretty shocking season in the bad category? As always, if you are new, feel free to subscribe. But we've got a lot of drivers, not a lot of time, so let's crack on with it. It is going to be a strange video in the sense because I've not had too many opportunities so far this year to talk to you guys about individual races, about individual drivers. And what I'm going to start with is this man here, Nick DeVries. And unfortunately for Nick, and you know, my graphic skills are okay, but not fantastic, so some drivers might overlap with each other. Unfortunately for Nick, it's not been a great year, and losing his seat to Daniel Ricciardo only halfway through the season. Luckily enough, I was at Silverstone, so saw his last ever Grand Prix, but looking at his results this year, 14th, his first race was okay, his second race was okay, a season best of 12th, but nowhere near the points, consistently behind Nick DeVries. I think it was harsh to drop him when they did. Very easily could have done it at the summer break, but we know how ruthless that program is. Red Bull do not mess around. If they think a driver is not good enough, they're out the door. That's what we saw with Nick DeVries, so it seems harsh to put him in bad, but losing your seat before even the halfway point, it's an easy one to start us off. But that performance in Williams last year gives him a bit of hope to at least continue a strong racing career, but I think that's the end of the road in Formula 1. We'll go to the other end, and actually my mouse is on him straight away. There is no other place we can put Max Verstappen other than legendary. Look, it's been, again, I said it at the start of the video, a season of dominance for Max, but very easily it's going to break so many records this year. Red Bull already have got that consecutive race victories as a team under their belt. Max Verstappen could make history next time out in Zandvoort and then improve on that in most consecutive victories for a driver. At the moment, it seems like it's going to be difficult for any team to catch them, but there's a few that are getting closer of late, so that's going to be fun to keep an eye on. Alex Albon. Oh, not Albon. We've gone to Valtteri Bottas. This is a harder one. I'm going to put Valtteri in average, but I feel could drop down to bad. And my thoughts on this is that Bottas, first of all, is a race winner. Is it 7 times, 8 times? Race winner. He's got pedigree in Formula 1. And the reason that the team brought him in was to bring them further up the grid, was to consistently beat Guanyu Zhou, and that's not happening. Valtteri's on 5 points, Zhou's on 4, so it's very close between the two teammates. Both of them have scored on 2 occasions this year. Valtteri, his 8th place in the first race of the season in Bahrain, his best result. But I just feel of late it's been Zhou who's got the upper hand on him. And that consistency that Alfa Romeo need, what they're paying for really with Valtteri, I just don't feel like it's there. I feel like it is lacking at the moment. So, average season. As we go along, I might move some drivers around, and he may drop into bad, just because that pure pace doesn't seem like it's there. So actually with that, we might as well do Zhou, his teammate. And I'm going to pop Zhou in a good season, because it's still not that stellar consistency that you need to be in that top level bracket of Formula 1. So great, legendary, absolutely not. Average, good, it's that kind of realm. He's beating Bottas in a car which is okay, but only on certain tracks, only at certain weekends. Other times can be a bit of a dog in some races. So he's having an okay season, 2 points finishes so far, in front of Yuki Tsunoda, in front of Kevin Magnussen. I think that's a good season. for Zhou and is a step up from last year. That's all you can really ask for. So, yeah, I'm happy with that one. Carlos Sainz is speaking to me next. So, Carlos, maybe next to Zhou. Maybe next to Zhou. And it's hard with Ferrari, like it always is. It's very, very difficult. Actually, I'm just looking at his results. He's going down to average. And Ferrari are Ferrari. And that car this year hasn't been spectacular. It's been a big step down from last year where they were scoring victories, pole positions. But I've just spotted, I can't believe I hadn't realised this stat, Carlos is yet to get a podium this season. And for it to be classed as a good season at Ferrari, the halfway point, you need a podium. He's had some good drives. He's been closer with Charles, but considering Charles' opening 3 races had 2 DNFs, Carlos had one last time out in Spa, but actually, apart from that, has scored points in most other races. About 5th place is his average finishing position, only 1 top 4. I think he would demand better from himself. The car's not been great, but average, I think, is where I've got to put him. Seems harsh. I'd like to know your thoughts on that one. Kevin Magnussen, he's going to go in bad. And unfortunately, he is going to cover the top of Pierre Gasly's lovely haircut, so we'll try and shift them around a little bit. But while I do that, K-Mag, it goes in bad because it's just been a very, very inconsistent season. The only consistency coming that he's been slower than Nico Hülkenberg more often than not. And I don't really know where this has come from because K-Mag last year definitely had the edge over Mick Schumacher. Hülkenberg's been out of Formula 1 for a couple of seasons, but has really gelled with that car. And out of the 2 drivers within that team, has been the one getting the real headline stories. And we'll get on to Nico. Well, we might as well do him now, actually. Nico, I'm going to put in great for his start to life at Haas because he did get that front row qualifying position in Canada before being demoted a few spots, was running in the podium positions in that sprint race in Austria, that chaotic sprint race at the start in Austria, and actually has been in the points in high positions in many races. And it seems harsh with one Haas driver so high and one so far down because realistically that car has been quick in quali, but in the races has dropped back. So this is more of a reflection in their qualifying pace because both of them in the Grand Prix have drifted backwards. Hülkenberg's only scored points once this year, a 7th place in Melbourne, and actually was almost a podium in itself, so that was a pretty great race. Shouldn't forget about that one. K-Mag's got 10th twice, but I just feel where the car comes alive in quali, it has been Nico who's really got his hands around that car and extracted the maximum from it. I've not got that from Kevin this year. So an average year would be Kevin being close with Nico, and it's just not been that so far. So great start to life at Haas for Hülkenberg. Even though the points aren't there, that's what Haas need. And both drivers actually relatively clean so far this year, and that's what a team like Haas definitely need. A few engine failures for both, one for K-Mag at Silverstone, one for Hülkenberg in Austria, I believe it was. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Maybe slightly harsh on K-Mag, but we'll see. Pierre Gasly speaking to me now because that's bugging me that his hair's being chopped off. It's been between average and good, and my thinking on this is that Ocon has had the edge. Ocon's on 35 points, Gasly is on 22, and Gasly's kind of at that bottom, in the bottom spot really, at the end of the midfield, in front of the back markers. So behind Gasly is actually Alex Albon on 11 points. He's in a new team, a new environment, a car that's been all over the place, but of late, Gasly has definitely been making improvements, step forwards I believe, and I will put it in good because he got that top 3 in Spa in the sprint race. And I think that does count for something. I think his target for this year, of course every driver wants to win, wants to get championships, but realistically, his target would have been a podium. He has achieved that. So I wouldn't say average, that's a bit of nothing, but it's been a good start to life at Alpine. His teammate, it's been pretty great this year for Esteban Ocon. It's been the season that he needed to step up. Of course, last year, beating Fernando Alonso, he needed to make that step to become the team leader. And he's done that. Consistently beating Pierre Gasly for most of this season so far. 35 points is only 12 behind Lance Stroll in that Aston Martin. Is one in front of Oscar Piastri, and is 12 in front of his teammate. I think that's solid. But I think for Ocon, it would be good. The car is all over the place, but what makes it great is that podium in Monaco. And that weekend in Monaco was so special from Esteban Ocon. And if you want to look at his targets for the year, what was he aiming for? A podium would be the one. But to say it's at Monaco, which really was quite a quiet race in Monaco, he was just quick all weekend, deserved to be in great. But I think Gasly and Ocon, I'm interested to revisit this at the end of the season, because they're getting closer. But so far, if I'm basing it on these opening 12 races we've had so far, 13 rounds, he's been the one that's been leading Alpine. So I'm happy with that. Let's do a big one. Let's do one at the front. Let's go for Lewis Hamilton, who's hiding down here in the corner. I'm going to go for... and this is tricky, isn't it? This is tricky because I feel the standards this man has set over his career, it's got to kind of land between here, because it's a step up from last year. He's 4th in the standings, 1 point behind Fernando Alonso. But for Lewis Hamilton, would he count this as a great year? I think his on-track performances say yes. I think yes. Not legendary. Man's a 7-time world champion and has only got 1 pole position and no victory. So definitely not legendary. But his on-track ability this year has been a step up from last year. I feel last year was good, bit messy, bit scruffy. We've not seen that so much this year from Lewis. I think he's back to his best. It's just the car that's been really letting him down. And actually, he is comfortably in front of teammate George Russell. Almost 50 points, in fact. And I know George has had some reliability issues throughout the season. And actually, Lewis got a big result in Australia, P2. Could have been P1. But actually, George was the one leading the race before he retired in that one. So I know there's reasons why that gap is there. But Lewis this year has been the better of the two Mercs. So I'm going to go great season for Lewis Hamilton. And G. Russ, good season. And again, he's 49 points behind Lewis, almost 50. But he's level with Charles Leclerc, 2 places behind in the standings, 2 DNFs. I mean, that was a bit of a sloppy mistake in Canada, hitting the wall entering the final sector. That cost him dear. But again, that Australia one wasn't his fault. He's putting in some good performances, just not quite on the level of Lewis Hamilton. And he has got a podium in Spain earlier on in the season, so I need to put him in goods because I gave Carlos average for not having the podium. So try a bit of consistency there. Let's go for Yuki Tsunoda, because this is a driver who on paper, 3 points, all the way down in 17th in the standings, should be here. But his drives this season have been ridiculous. Have been so good. And has an average finishing position of around about 12th place. In that car, he's been stomping it. And one of, if not the main reason that Nick DeVries was chucked out the door was because he was so far behind Yuki Tsunoda. And Yuki has made that step up in pace, but also it's just been a lot cleaner. A lot cleaner this season. And I think Red Bull, they're not thinking, let's get him in the car straight away. That's not their thought process. But it's definitely something I think they're a little bit more aware of, that Yuki actually is within their family. It's an option for next year. I don't think they're jumping at it, but it will be in the back of their minds. He's impressed me this year. Great season. His best in Formula 1 so far. Really strong from Yuki Tsunoda. Points aren't everything. And someone who I think backs that is this man, Fernando Alonso. Top 3 at the halfway stage. I know it's by 1 point, but top 3, only 40 points behind Sergio Perez's Red Bull. think it has to go up there. Top of his head's chopped off. I think it has to go up there. I really do. This man at the start of the year, and kind of still is now, we'll make Max a bit shorter, is just carried Formula One. He really, this man at the start of the year, all the stories were on him, and rightly so. What an inspired decision to move from Alpine to Aston Martin. If Monaco, and I feel like comments are going to have a go at me here, because I said Monaco was quite dull, but now thinking about it, Monaco reigned late on, didn't it? And though point stands that Ocon was great that weekend, Fernando could have won it if things had gone his way. And so many times at the start of the year, 2 second places, one in Monaco, also one in Canada, don't forget about as well. Went on that incredible 3-race run in the opening 3 rounds of the season with podiums. Then you got 4th place in Baku, and then 2 more podiums, 7th place in Spain, then another podium. But since Austria, nothing. And that's down to the car more than anything, because has been so far in front of his teammate. It's been unreal. Fernando is on 149 points. Lance is on 47. Yeah, let that sink in. Let that sink in. It's not the biggest teammate margin, but it's close to it. And so for that, Alonso, he's a championship winner, multiple championship winner. So they've got to be legendary seasons. 2007, where he lost out on the title by 1 point. Legendary season. I feel like this is close. And again, we get to the end of the year. If it continues like it does now, I don't think it's a legendary season. But the start of the year he's had, if he can give us the stories and the intrigue, and if he can be as close as he's been for the majority of this year so far, it's got to be a legendary year. It's got to be. Love to know your thoughts on that one. Lance, on the other hand, has to go down there. Absolutely has to. Is so far off Fernando. Maybe this is a bit harsh, but he's letting down Aston Martin. They should be in front of Mercedes in the Constructors. They're only 5 points in front of Ferrari. They should be doing so much better. Lance, I said it earlier, is only 12 points in front of Esteban Ocon, behind Norris, behind Sainz, behind Russell. That car at the start of the year was too good for that. Was way too good. Only 2 retirements as well. That gap is unjustifiable. You can't blame it on retirement. Way too big. It's not been a great start for Lance, and there's normally questions about his position in Formula One. This year, they're kind of expected. And that's it's not quite the right word and I'm going for there, but they're justified. That's what I'm looking for. They're justified. Because there have been seasons where he's got podiums, where he's got pole positions, and you kind of feel like there's a driver in there that actually deserves his spot. I can't really defend it this year. A season best 4th place in Australia, but there were retirements there. Apart from that, no top 5 finishes. And actually, since Canada, has only got 9th and 10th place finishes. Got a 4th place in the sprint in Austria, but actual Grand Prix, last 5 races, 9th, 9th, 14th, 10th, 9th. That's not good enough for that car. Aston's not been great recently. His performances have not been the one, that's for sure. Danny Rick. Hard this one, hard. 2 races to judge by, but I will go with good. I will go with good because he's jumped in that car at a funny time, 2 races before the summer break. Very strange time. But of what I've seen, it's been quick. And it's been more attuned to the Renault and Red Bull Daniel Ricciardo than the McLaren one. And it seems like that McLaren time hasn't been wiped away. And I've got to really be careful what I say because it has just been 2 races. But from what we've observed, I've liked it. He's been quick. He's been on it. It was the sprint in Spa in particular, really quick. And just the car didn't have the legs in that sprint. But I've enjoyed what I've seen so far from Ricciardo. I'm excited to see more. I can't put it in great, but it was been good. Solid start. Really looking forward to seeing him and Yuki for the rest of the year. Let's do a rookie, Oscar Piastri, because the start of the year was slow, but of late, been pretty awesome. And recency bias, of course, comes into it. But if you're looking at what's expected from a rookie, if you're looking at who his teammate is, the struggles of that car at the start of the year, and almost the pressure that now comes that the car is quick. Because when you've got a quick car, it's much easier to be found out. And when you look at Logan Sargent, for example, it's harder to judge because it's not a great car. It's a car that can have great weekends, but overall isn't fantastic. Oscar has got a quick car now. And since he's got a quick car, he did score that second place in the sprint race in Spa, was leading his first Formula 1 laps, albeit a sprint race in Spa. Silverstone, robbed of a podium is harsh, but I feel like he was robbed. Being there, seeing how close he was to Lando, that safety car late on cost him a podium, deserved it that day. I think great. Again, you ask him, what are his aspirations, his hopes for this year, his objectives? I feel, yes, again, poles, wins, we know, but podium's got to be on there. Realistically, from last year moving into this year, you say podium. You look at the start of the season, you tell me by Spa he's leading the sprint race, he's getting a second place. I don't believe you. If you tell me, even if you tell me before Silverstone, you tell me in Austria. Actually, they're okay in Austria. You tell me in Canada that they're going to be second place or the second quickest car in Silverstone, in Spa, and going forwards. I don't believe you. Great start to life at McLaren. And actually, Norris has to fit in there. And for Lando, it could be there. It could be legendary, because it could be, but it's not. It's not legendary, and I'll tell you why. It's because he's up against a rookie. And this year, he has consistently beat Oscar, but that's what he's supposed to do. That's what we expect. Of late, Oscar's got closer. Lando has had the edge. Last 5 races, it's been legendary for Nozza. 2 second places, 1 at his home Grand Prix, then 1 at Hungary, back to back. That's awesome. But first start of the year was not legendary. Doesn't matter how far in front of Oscar he was, it was not legendary. Ask me at the end of the year, ask me once he's got that first win of the season at Zandvoort. Did I say that out loud? Possibly. That's a prediction and a half. Ask me once he's got a win, once he's got a pole this year, and actually he got very close, didn't he, in Hungary, then I think it goes up. For now, it's great, bordering legendary. I feel that's top status legendary. Not there yet. Very, very close. 4 more drivers. We've got 2 Williams boys. Let's go for the Williams boys. We've got Logie Sarge. It's down here. It's down here. Bad, for me, seems a bit harsh. Because what were the expectations for Sargent? I think his objective, from a team point of view, from his own point of view, and as a fan point of view, is he more competitive and quicker than Nicholas Latifi? I think yes. And actually, when you consider that Nicholas had 3 years of F1 experience under his belt, I still think Logan would beat him. Be close, but I think Logan would beat him. Does he make as many mistakes as Latifi? At the start of the year, yes, but now, not so much. And of late, has definitely been getting closer to Alex Albon, has made it past Q1 now as well. These are big things in the first half of a season in Formula 1. And what I want to see is progression. I've seen that. It's not good, but it's average. It's average. It's kind of what I expected. Would have liked a bit more, but I think this man, Alex Albon, has been awesome. And again, like Norris, is kind of here. It's kind of here because I've got a lot in great, and it's kind of here. And actually, I am going to do that. I am, because my thinking on this is that Williams needed that step up this season, and the car, it's hard to judge with Sargent in the other machine. The car isn't a consistent point scorer, and I know that Alex hasn't consistently got points finishes, but 3 so far this year, 11 points, has carried that team in front of AlphaTauri, in front of Haas, in front of Alfa Romeo. Credit where credit's due. Alex has been awesome this year, and I think there's not been many mistakes. Overtakes have been brilliant. Consistently in the top 10. Okay, by the end of the race he's been dropping off, but you look at some of his results, 2 11th places, 12th place, a couple of retirements early on in the year in Saudi and Australia. You never know what they could have turned into. So I feel, well, Australia actually was his mistake. Apart from that, I think it's been faultless so far this year. So legendary. I think this has been a year, and maybe this is a personal thing, a year where my opinions on Albon have flipped, because I feel like he was a bit of a mid-tier driver. This year, I look at him differently, and I think he's made that step up, has led this team fantastically over the last 2 seasons, and this year's been on it. And then we're down to two drivers, 2 big names in Formula 1. I think Charles, it's been good. It's been good. And again, it's hard because that car's not been great, but his aspirations were wins, were pole positions. And I know he's had a couple of poles so far this season, but the Spa pole position, was it really a pole position? Baku definitely was. 2nd in the sprint, 3rd in the race. Strong weekend. 3rd place at Spa, 2nd place at Austria. There have been moments, but a great season for Charles Leclerc, one of the best on the grid, in a Ferrari, with no wins, with not even a weekend where you felt like, apart from Baku I think, and even the race, Red Bull romped it. The fact that we've not got into the latter stages of a Grand Prix and he's been in with a shot, it's got to be good. And finally, Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez, he has the largest gap out of any teammate in Formula 1 at the moment. 135 points off his teammate. So Max can DNF 5 races and Sergio can win all of them with the fastest lap and still be behind in the standings. I think people will point out that a 3rd place and a 2nd place in the last 2 rounds have been a bit of a shift in form, but I am going to be that person and say his qualifying results shouldn't be that far back. And actually, I'm not off the top of my head sure how many it was in a row consistently not getting into Q3, but it was at least 4, if not 5, and you can't be doing that in a Red Bull. You really can't. And he's 2nd in the standings. That's where he needs to be. I think if he wasn't, and I think if Aston had stayed consistently the 2nd quickest, I think he may have been out the door by this point. It's not been a great season. I think average is too kind. I really do. It's not been good for Sergio Perez, and he goes in bad. And that's it. That's our 21. A final look over this, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy. I feel there's a couple that, like we said, you've kind of got Norris and Albon that are a bit in between, and maybe I'm being a little bit too kind on Nico in the Haas, but there's a slight soft spot there, as you all know. But that will do. That's me. That is my mid-season ratings. We've been going for a while. So as always, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Hopefully in the second half of the year, I'll be a bit more active. But I can't make any promises. That is life. But I do love being here. I love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you all in the next one.